Good evening. Welcome again to our program, Women to Women. I'm Carol Paz, your hostess, and as always, we have a very special lady with us. But before we get into the first half, I'd like to thank our sponsors, Vila Bass Deli and Cafe, home of Pete's famous Basque tree soap, as well as Carpa Nevada LLC, importer of fine Portuguese olive oils, balsamic vinegar, and international teas. So let's welcome our guest. We have with us Autumn Ray James.
Hello,
Thank
Carol.
you so much, Autumn, for being with us. This
Absolutely.
is a true delight, true delight.
Such an honor.
Well, we have a feast, okay, on our table. And Autumn represents a very popular and highly respected business here in Carson City. Tell us a little bit about where you work right now, Autumn.
Okay. Well, I am the jewelry manager for Northern Nevada Coin.
Okay.
And we have 3 locations out throughout Northern Nevada. And so we specialize in buying and selling of precious metals, including coin, bullion, and obviously jewelry.
Obviously, this beautiful display here. So, Autumn, before we get into the business per se and your special responsibilities and your special connection to all of this jewelry, let's talk a little bit, first of all, where do you come from originally, and did you have interest as a child that eventually led you to what you do now?
Well, yes, I did actually. I am a native to Northern Nevada. I was raised primarily in the Carson Valley, which I am very proud to say, and I love. And I've stayed in this area because of everything that the Sierra Mountains have to offer. I am definitely an outdoor enthusiast, so a lot of my background led me to the profession that I am currently. But yeah, I have every intention of staying here and growing as the area grows.
You know, you've mentioned something here that's important, I think, to young people, to children that grow up. You have the mountains. You can go climbing, you can go rock hunting, you can go splunking maybe. And for those of us who grew up in areas where there are no mountains, it kind of is a whole different world when you come in into a classroom, you come into a museum, you come into a store where so many precious and semi-precious contents of the earth are displayed.
Yes.
Did you have that interest as a kid growing up exploring?
You know, I really did, and I laughingly say that I'm a rock hound. And anybody that's a rock hound knows what that means. But I spend more time looking down than I do looking where I'm going.
Okay.
And I'm filling my pockets and loved ones' pockets with rocks and quartz and everything that I can find. Part of also what I love about this area is that a lot of the past is still here in the dirt. And so a lot of times, you know, you'll be out in the middle of nowhere and you'll find a beautiful arrowhead or a spoon from a pioneer from 100 years ago that's been in the dirt for that long. And I think that's part of what the allure about this area is, and also my love for historical items and the history attached to them.
And you know, there's, again, truth in what you're saying. As an East Coast individual, that is territory which is also incredibly historical for our nation as well as for the globe, the world. But it has been explored more than, I'm guessing, what the West has. So there's still an advantage of time that's here, that as you say, in the ground, as you're walking, your eyes are going to spot probably some very unusual pieces of rock. And what's inside those rocks is a surprise many times.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
Okay. So what background do you particularly feel that you bring to Northern Nevada Coin?
Well, you know, I started early in my career as an interior designer, and I still have quite a passion for that. An eye for adornment and discernment is important when you're in this field. But really, my love for history, my love, obviously, for jewelry. And I always laugh. I have a story of when I was a little girl, I was in a Cinderella dress and a bun, and I had all my mom's jewelry on. Of course, she had no idea what I was doing. And I was making mud pies. So I looked really good doing it. But I was still in the mud, and I was still in the dirt. And so that's a great story to kind of explain who I am and what I'm all about is, you know, you lose some of that when you go to the mass-produced world of artistry, whether it's jewelry or furniture. You know, just kind of keeping that connection to the past, I think, is important.
All right. So, Autumn, we're here to learn. And we're also here to support that idea that I always bring up in Women to Women, that whoever our viewers are, if they're thinking about working in a business, eventually becoming in their minds and their hearts an owner of a business, there are certain things on the employee side, certain things with your inventory that you really need to become familiar with so that that passion that you're talking about comes through when you're meeting the public.
Yes.
And you excite the public to what you have. So I'm wondering, in the display right here, how have you broken it down? These are just a few of the items. And by the way, I'm wearing a beautiful item, okay, that we'll talk about later. But how would you explain to our viewers what you've set up here?
Well, what I have here is kind of a nice array of what it is we offer at Northern Nevada Coin, and really what a specialty market has become for us. Aside from the coin and the bullion and the currency, which we're more known for, it's the unique historical items in jewelry and other trinkets. So what I have over here is a lot of the semi-precious stones, whether it's going to be vintage pieces, contemporary, or not. But semi-precious tend to be very abundant. They're natural, but there's a lot of them. Let's say that.
Okay.
And so then,
as opposed to the precious.
Exactly, and that's really what dictates your value behind a colored stone is going to be if it falls in the category of precious versus semi-precious. That's really the biggest factor there with semi-precious and precious stones.
Is the color.
Is the in colored stones, which diamonds we'll talk about a little bit later, but there are two categories with colored stones, and one of them is very abundant and the other is very rare. And so the ones that are really rare are going to be your rubies, emeralds, diamonds, and sapphires. Now there are a few exceptions to the rules in the semi-precious world, but that's primarily the rule of thumb.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's continue. What else do you have here?
Well, over here is some of my most personal favorites are going to be the treasures that have been set in precious metal for the last 200 years. We used to do it all the time. Our mirrors, our spoons, our compacts, our purses, everything was set in a precious metal. And as we know, with the current market, that world is gone for the general public. It's no longer an option. We are not going to set common purses out of sterling silver. But these items still exist and they're still here, and especially the beautiful hand mirrors. I always imagine who had looked in it and what history. You and I were talking earlier about if a mirror could talk, what it saw, and so that's part of why I really love those items there. And then of course diamonds.
Diamonds.
Okay. Diamonds are just beautiful pieces. They are very durable. They're, believe it or not, rare. And I know that there's a lot of diamonds out there on the market, but it really comes down to a couple different factors as far as which ones are more special than others.
And diamonds can vary in color as well, extensively.
Extensively.
All right.
And so with that being said, there's the industry standard is what GIA, which is Gemological Institute of America, is dictated for diamonds. And it comes down to the 4 C's. And that's really it. It's pretty simple. And the 4 C's are going to be your color, your carat, your cut, and your clarity.
Okay.
And when your diamonds are being evaluated by either professionals here at Northern Nevada Coin or another location, that's really what's going to dictate the price for buying and selling. It really is.
So you're going to take a very careful look at those 4 C's.
Yes.
Then help us as consumers out there, as potential buyers. When we walk into a store such as Northern Nevada Coin, what do we need to keep in mind if we bring in a piece of jewelry and let's say that we want to sell it? It could have been an heirloom that we've inherited. It could be something that we purchased early on in our life and now would like to sell it because either the value of the silver, the value of the gold, or the semi-precious or the precious stone is something that we need cash for. Okay, what do we need to keep in mind when we come into a store, if it's not a retail store?
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, the main thing would be is to know the difference between retail and wholesale.
And what is that?
Well, it's going to be a percentage, and it comes down to a percentage that the product is either marked up or a percentage of what the dealer is willing to pay. And so we're looking at current market value for the precious metal and the stones. And we're being very fair and competitive based off of the current market value.
All right.
So knowing that when you come in that we are not a retail store, whether we sell the jewelry or we buy the jewelry, we're not going to be at retail pricing, which on average really truly, and it shocks people when I say this, but it could be up to 1,000% markup.
In a retail store.
In a retail setting, yeah. And so knowing that and being informed when you come in what the current market value is for that precious metal, that's important. And that's where a resource like Northern Nevada Coin is really nice for this area, is because you're not committed to sell to us for us to come in and, or you to come in and let us take a look at it and do a evaluation as to what you have.
And I would think that that's a very smart first step, is to come in to a highly reliable place of business, such as your store, and take a look at that piece and let the owner of that piece really know what they're dealing with here, because there are a lot of false impressions out there.
There are.
And there's a lot of misinformation on our part as the person who's coming in to see, well, perhaps this is something that I can give up, I can sell, but I may come in expecting that you're going to give me close to retail price for what I paid for, and that's not the case.
Not the case.
No.
And I hate to break people's hearts with that because they have so much invested in it, and when they bought it at full retail, it's difficult to get that back out.
Right.
A lot of times I'll hear, well, I'll go and I'll put it online, and of course I always encourage people to look at all avenues to make sure they're comfortable when they're selling their items. But there's an enormous amount of items out there online, and so what you need to really understand is, what do you have?
And don't be in a rush.
Don't be in a rush, and trust who you're dealing with. And I hope that my clients at Northern Nevada Coin know that they're in good hands, because I truly put my heart and soul in the services that I'm offering
I
them.
believe that you do.
I do.
Tell me something about, before this first half closes, what I'm wearing.
Isn't it fabulous?
It's beautiful. I feel like I should be on the Titanic. I don't want to be going down with the Titanic.
I hear that a lot. The Hope Diamond. The Hope Diamond.
Diamond.
Well, what you have on is 170 carats of something called Swiss topaz.
It's beautiful.
Yes, and Swiss topaz is a irradiated stone, so that means that it actually has a treatment added to it to pop that color. And as an example, this is a natural topaz here.
Right, this ring. Okay.
And there's a lot of topaz out on the market that actually is either irradiated or heat treated to get that color. But there are some that come out of the ground that color, and that is an example of one.
It's beautiful. It's really beautiful. But there is a treatment that you say.
There is. It's either heat or radiation is what's added to it to get those colors. And believe it or not, 90% of the topazes on the market have some type of treatment. They absolutely do.
All right. And I would imagine that treatment in many cases is secret.
Yeah.
Okay. To get that quality of color.
Yeah, and different vendors have coined what they do and how they do it, but it's just something to be aware of when they're advertising something as a natural stone. You want to kind of know what you're dealing with and being an informed consumer.
Well, when we come back to the second half, I'd really like to have you share with us, is there a piece up here that has history that you love to it? We'll be right back. Don't go away.
Hi, I'm Stephen Lincoln with CarsonCityHomes.com, Carson City's original online real estate resource.
At CarsonCityHomes.com, you get effective and easy-to-use tools to help you select your next home today. With our easy-to-use website, you can search listings throughout Northern Nevada and narrow the results by selecting every facet, quirk, and quality you desire. Visit CarsonCityHomes.com.
Blast into summer with Carson Nugget's $1 million red, white, and blue summer giveaway, where we are giving away scooters all summer long. And with daily free play giveaways, cash bash weekends, outdoor barbecues, and more. Come in today to heat up your summer.
Apex SCF provides cutting-edge, hands-on training that effectively addresses today's threats of violence.
The Apex Stay Alive course teaches proven methods for personal protection and attack countermeasures that can be applied in any environment. In your home, at the workplace, or on campus, Apex will teach you the necessary skills to stay alive, including how to recognize and react to an active shooter scenario.
If you knew you had to fight for your life tomorrow, would you train today? Contact us now to sign up for a class in your region.
How was school today? Cool, we learned what to do in case there's an emergency.
Oh, will you show me?
Yeah, and if there is an earthquake, then you get under your desk, duck, cover, and hold. And when the shaking stops,
we evacuate the school just like a fire drill.
I'm glad you both know what to do in case of an emergency, but I'd still be worried.
you're supposed to check the phone, radio, or TV, and they'll tell you what to do.
Make a plan
Assemble a kit.
Stay informed.
and be ready.
Welcome back to Women to Women. Again, we have a very special lady, Autumn Ray James, with us, who is the manager of some very fine pieces of jewelry in a local store here in Carson that she's going to share with you again. But I'd like to thank our sponsors for the second half. We turn to carsonnow.org for the latest breaking news here in Carson City. So remember that name and go to it, carsonnow.org. We'd also like to thank Apex SCF, which teaches and demonstrates the latest methods in personal and corporate safety. So remember to look for Apex for your safety concerns. And we'd also like to thank our longtime supporters, the Nevada Appeal and Record Courier, who always encourage us to shop locally. Support those small businesses in your area and look for those special book of coupons in their Sunday editions, which help all of us. Now let's return to Autumn. Autumn, again, it's wonderful to have you with us.
Thank you.
And as I look at this nice menu, I realize that this is just a small portion of what Northern Nevada Coin has. And yet at the same time, I'm wondering, are diamonds much preferred over all the other beautiful gemstones that you have? Is there something about diamonds that, was Marilyn right? Diamonds are a girl's best friend. I mean, they really get a lot of attention.
They do, they do. And really it comes down to it's in the eye of the beholder. And that's really true. But why diamonds have endured the way they have is part of the reason because of their creation. For a diamond to form, it takes an enormous amount of heat and pressure.
Over time.
Over an enormous amount of time, more so than most stones. So that's why they are the hardest. They really are. And the allure behind what it takes to find a diamond and to create a diamond is why they are so desired. It comes down to its availability. It really does. And it's, I believe, exact figures I don't have, but it's tons and tons of pressure to create 1 carat. And so the fact that we have found the type of diamonds that we have, and we have the kind of diamonds that we do on the market is extraordinary. It really is.
In preparation for the program, I was doing just a little bit of research. And I had heard the name De Beers, from South Africa, for decades. And for decades, they really had a monopoly on the diamond industry, on the rough diamonds, because they were literally buying up all of the small mines, not only in South Africa, in Canada, Australia, Russia, Siberia. But that has changed. And their monopoly has dropped from a 90% control of all rough diamonds based on their value down to almost 35%. And the world market is beginning to open up again. Will that have an effect on prices where one particular company, global company such as De Beers was, and they could control the supply that comes onto the market, they could withdraw the supply, they could put it back out there, and by doing that, really help control the prices of what they wanted.
Absolutely.
So what do you see in the diamond future, in the diamond market as we have it today? Is there, without that monopoly, controlling world diamonds, world rough diamonds, because they still have to be cut, does the average buyer have a better chance of picking up a very good diamond at a better price?
Well, that's kind of a little bit of an open-ended, a gray area, because it really does come down to the natural supply. And if you do a little research on natural supply of gemstones, the predictions vary, and it's hard to speculate, and I wouldn't even want to get into that, but they predict probably in the next 15 to 20 years that the natural supply of stones will be diminished. And so although they command the price that they do now, you can imagine if the natural supply has diminished in several years, which is a long-term investment, then at that point they're going to command a much higher price point. But as you were saying, when you have a monopoly on the market and you dictate the price, then obviously it's their game. They've got the ball and they're in the court. They've got it. So I think that it's probably good for small businesses to get a chance to get in on that market. And I was a little excited to hear that some of the mom and pop might have a chance there. But it does come down to natural supply. It really does. And it's anyone's guess is how much is still there and what is still to be found.
Can you help us? Okay, we know that the diamond mines of South Africa and now in Australia, Canada, and Siberia are producing high quality. And we also know that there are these other beautiful, precious gemstones from other areas of the world. Can you help us understand if we're looking, for example, for an emerald, if we're looking for a piece of turquoise, if we're looking for a piece of opal, what are some of the other countries that help bring, through their mines, beautiful stones to the public?
Well, that's a great question. And when I get asked that question in the store, one way to answer it is there's lots of different tools and techniques to tell where the stone has originated.
Okay,
but
really?
an
That's
emerald,
interesting.
an emerald is a really great example. In fact, we have one right here.
Okay.
This one right there most likely is a Colombian emerald. And
how do you know that?
well, the reason being is going to be the color saturation. And we had briefly kind of got into that earlier, but color saturation is everything when you're talking about colored stones. With a Colombian emerald, you're going to have dark inclusions. And a term that we use in the trade is gardening.
Okay.
We don't want to necessarily look at it as flaws because it's part of the natural stone. It's part of the natural composition of the stone. But it has dark carbon spots in it, and they're very saturated, very green. Where other countries that offer emeralds, such as Africa and Brazil, is going to vary just a hair. Some of them have white inclusions. Others are a real grassy green. And then the emerald that's right next to this natural stone here is called a Chatham emerald. And that is actually a lab-created emerald. And they're very desired. They're grown in much of the same composite as a natural stone. However, they're grown in a lab. And in the 50s and 60s, they were really popular. Everybody had to have one.
So there would be definitely a different price.
Yeah,
value.
absolutely.
Yes.
Because if that was a natural stone there, then you're talking about far more valuable.
Yes,
Although
yes.
synthetic stones definitely have value, it's nothing compared to a natural stone.
Okay.
It really isn't.
But one should not be dismayed or disappointed if what their budget can afford is a synthetic stone, because they're beautiful.
They're beautiful.
Yes.
They're beautiful.
Yes.
And part of when we were dabbling in with GIA earlier, part of why they had established this system was to be able to distinguish between natural and synthetic. Although there are very convincing synthetics on the market. And you don't want to just assume because it has inclusions or it has something that looks like carbon that
Right.
it is a natural stone. And you would definitely want to go to a professional that you trusted to make that determination. But part of the reason that they went through the process of developing the 4 Cs is to make that difference known.
Yes, and when those 4 Cs exist for both the dealer and the public, you're talking quality.
Absolutely.
And there's a gradation there. Okay. Now, we mentioned earlier that diamonds have various colorings, various shades, from a pure,
Colorless.
okay,
Colorless.
all the way to deep yellow.
Yeah.
And the first time I ever saw a beautiful diamond ring, it had a yellowish cast, and I did not know that was a perfectly natural thing for a diamond.
Absolutely.
Now, does the coloring from a colorless piece of diamond, cut diamond, all the way down to deep yellow, does that affect the price?
It does. It does.
Okay.
And part of what a jeweler does is when they're grading a diamond is they take something called a master color kit. and they're comparing the stones to each one. And just like clarity, once you get these inclusions or these flaws that you see in a natural stone, it's going to bring that grading down. And so although stones that have been certified by a recognizable grading company such as GIA is going to command a higher price, the other factor is really that color and clarity. Cut and carat matter, but color and clarity is what everyone's looking for. Does it sparkle? Does it gleam? Does it catch light? Yeah, and cut is actually part of that, is how does the light reflect off? What kind of polish, proportion, and symmetry does that stone offer?
So there's a lot to, our
it.
homework
Yeah.
before we decide to buy.
You want to know.
Yes, a pricey piece of jewelry. Do some research, do your homework.
Do your homework.
Yes.
Get familiar with what the 4 C's are. You can always come into Northern Nevada Coin. We have a wonderful selection of GIA stones and settings. In fact, wedding season is upon us. So a lot of times part of what we're here to offer is we're kind of a liaison with the process of finding the right stone.
Yes.
Some men that are more traditional that plan to get on their knee and whatnot come in, and they get overwhelmed very easily. So we want them to know that it's not a pressure, it's more of informative. What are you trying to achieve? What's realistic with your budget? And make it a comfortable process.
And Autumn, just by our talking here, it's very evident that if you like beautiful gemstones and you like to work with them, you'd like to present them to the public, it also requires time to build up that expertise background.
Yes.
The information that you have so comfortably delivered here in the program is not an overnight process, okay? It's working with the stones and noticing when you examine them yourself and you compare them to what the standards are. Do they have those standards or not, so that you can see the difference, whether it's through a microscope or whether it's through your own naked eye. One of the best things that ever happened to me, I had an uncle that I just loved to be around him, and he worked for the highway department back in the Midwest. So he would be walking along the roadways with the trucks and heavy equipment, but he always kept his eye out for special rocks. And he came home this one evening, it was in the wintertime, and they had been plowing the snow away, and the plow board had pushed up this pretty big sized small boulder. He lugged it back home, and he called my sister and I over into his garage, and he said, "I think there's a surprise in there." And we looked at each other, and we couldn't imagine what he was talking about. Well, he had a saw that was very powerful, and he said, "I'm going to cut into this, and I think there's a surprise." He said, "I could be wrong, sometimes I am." But he had this experience behind him of picking up rocks. And he had shown my sister and I kind of what to look for in terms of shape and colors. But we hadn't gone beyond that. He applied that saw, and he put goggles on us. He had us stand back, and he went through that good size, probably, close to 150 pound, 200 pound small boulder, opened it up, and the most exquisite filled with pink crystals.
Isn't that beautiful?
White crystals. Our eyes popped. Okay.
So he was a rock hound.
He was a rock hound. We come back to that term, rock
Yes.
hound. But what it did was to inspire both of us to, when we saw beautiful jewelry, to take a look at and to ask, where did that stone come from?
That's great.
And I think when you're a mother, you're a wife, and all of this that you work with day in and day out is such a treasure by itself to pass on to your family, to your children.
It is.
And I want to just say thank you for what you have done for us, because you have opened up our eyes, you have opened up our brains, and I think if we're looking at this program tonight, we're in deep appreciation for what you've taught us to look for. We'll be very careful, but I'm going to spend a few bucks. So we thank
Then I've
everyone.
done my job.
You've done your job, okay. You've done your job so well. And we thank each and every one who's been viewing us tonight. And we encourage you to take a look next week with a brand new guest. So for Women to Women, I'm Carol Paz. Have a good evening. Good night.